I work for a company that's involved in this space, but actually we're not really going to talk about my company per se at the moment. I really want to talk to you about a much broader issue that actually affects everyone in this room and, of course, people who aren't in this room. And it's called this idea, this thesis, the 2020 energy inflection point. So let's start with a thought experiment. And again, this is largely the thought experiment that woke me up in a morning of panic. So it's a contrast. So let's just play this game for a moment. Let's assume we made a policy decision today that we were going to stop using coal and natural gas for the generation of electricity 20 years from now, or 19 to be exact. Okay. So what would the world look like in 2030? Would the lights still be on? All of the things that we're doing around here that involve electricity? Well, I would contend that the answer is the world would look actually sort of like it does today with some notable changes. Now, in France, it would look a lot more like it does today than in the US. Of course, in France, 71% of energy comes from nuclear, and in fact, coal and natural gas, or the two fossil fuels, only amount to 9% of your generation of electricity. So I would contend that in France, this would be a no-brainer. This would simply be a matter of spending a few more $1 billion, or a few tens of billions to be exact, and you could easily deploy that other 91% of your electricity generation to close the gap. In the United States, it would be a little tougher, but we could do it. In the United States, we only get about 33% of our energy from non-fossil sources. But the point is, those non-fossil sources do exist, both domestically and abroad, and the technology is ready. Now, would our electricity bill go up? Yes, probably would. In the United States, we pay an astonishingly little amount for electricity. So certainly our electricity bill would go up as we move to some of the more expensive technologies. But nevertheless, we'd still have electricity bills to pay. So would the transition be easy? Depends where you start, but more or less it would be doable. And the word easy would be a function of how much work needs to go. In other words, how much capital do you need to deploy over the next 19 to 20 years to make this transition? So let's play a different game now. What if we woke up tomorrow and decided that we were going to stop using oil by 2030? So same question, but now I'm not talking about electricity for power. Now I'm talking about oil. And remember, 3/4 of oil is what we use for transportation. The other quarter of oil we use in some cases for electricity generation and heat, but primarily for the generation of petrochemicals. So what would the world look like in 2030? I don't actually know the answer here. I haven't seen what it looks like. I don't know what we'd be doing. Would we still be able to drive and fly like we do today? Again, it's not clear to me. And therein lies the rub. So why can't we do the same thing? I just gave you a really simple explanation for how we could easily survive electricity generation deficits if we had to move off fossil fuels, but I'm not able to articulate the same problem on the liquid side. I'm going to get into this in a moment, but I want to plant that seed with you. Now, are we doomed? No, I'm not saying we're doomed, but that's why we're having this discussion today. If we were having this discussion 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I'd be very worried. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, why would we have a discussion today that might not legitimately be a concern for another 10 to 15 years? And the problem comes down to scale. I think a lot of people who don't live and breathe, eat and sleep in the world of energy sort of forget the scale of the industry. The world consumes 1,000 barrels of oil every second. It's a $7.5 trillion industry. That means it's larger than any other industry in the world. The world's largest publicly traded company, ExxonMobil, only amounts to 2.5% of the market. So that gives you a sense of how big this market is.